I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Because I don't want to use lethal force before I've used my words to create a boundary. I've used my hand to create a boundary. Even though it's not required of me here, but all of these things, maybe I use my fists, my headbutt, my elbow, my knees, and then I see them reaching for their pocket. Now the knife comes out because now I feel fear for my safety, right? So where that kind of metric takes you, the more capable you are, you may get further into those insulating factors before you feel like you need to use that lethal force.
Welcome to the Bomb Life Podcast, where fitness, mindset, and real talk collide. This isn't just about workouts. It's about transforming your body, mind, and life. Get ready for unfiltered conversations, expert advice, and the motivation you need to level up in every way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Bomb Life Podcast. I am Melissa Vogel, your host. Welcome to the show. If you are brand new to the show, I am so glad that you are here. Make sure you go back and listen to all of the episodes. You are going to just be amazed at all of the different topics that we cover having to do with muscle growth and mindset and nutrition and staying motivated, even though motivation is a joke and it comes and goes. We're talking about anxiety on this show, everything, you name it, sex, relationships, divorce, dating, we cover it. Why? Why do we cover everything? Because everything impacts your health and fitness, even today's topic, which we're going to dive into. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Today's episode is a little bit different. It's a topic that we actually haven't talked about on this episode before. We have covered so many different things, but today it's a must listen to. This is one of those episodes that could save someone's life. And I don't mean because of like health and like fitness or catching cancer or something like that. It could save your life in a whole different way. And it is a must listen to for everyone. If you are a man listening to this and you are in a relationship with a female or have kids, you have to listen. And women and kids, like, listen up. This episode, you definitely need to hear. We're talking all about women's safety today and just overall safety in general. We're talking about sex trafficking and children trafficking. And I'm sure there's men listening going, why am I listening to this? Because like I said, if you have a partner, you need to be aware too. Our guest right in the beginning said that there's blind spots when it comes to keeping our partner safe and our children safe. And it takes a village to keep everyone safe. And I have shared a little bit about my story and my journey, not the full thing yet. It's coming. I've talked about how I experienced domestic violence and an attack. And this episode, there were several different parts of it that hit real close to home for me. And at one point, I'm telling you guys in the episode that, you might be listening to this and thinking, oh, this will never happen to me. And you might be listening to this introduction going like, oh, I don't know if this really applies to me. We live in a pretty safe neighborhood, or I live in this city or this state. And before we even dive in, I want you guys all to remember things that we're talking about today on the show. It can happen to anyone. We talk about police and being arrested and words to use and domestic violence and just even kidnapping and trafficking and all of it and just your safety. And you guys, it can happen to anyone listening. It can happen to our children. We can blink and life can be different and changed just based on who you interacted with at the grocery store that day. So when I say we need to listen, we need to be educated, I truly mean it. And this is why I talk about things like this on this podcast, because you never know who's going to need it. And you never know what you're going to hear. And maybe you don't take action. Maybe you're just like, that was a really good episode. But there was something that I say or something that our guest says, and it's stuck in the back of your head. And then one day you need that information or that knowledge, and it's there because you listen to this and you can pull it out and use it. And you'd be like, you know what? I remember hearing this podcast one day and the guest said this, and I'm in this situation. Holy shit. And being a woman, I say this in the episode too, but I really want to make sure I said it in the intro. I don't think men realize how much time, energy, and effort that women put into different things than men do. I can't tell you how much of my energy goes into needing to keep myself safe and being aware of my surroundings and my kids. And when all four of us are together, I'm just like, fuck, we are, I said this, I'm like, we're four pretty girls walking around, no man by our side. It's just us. And I just feel like a big target sometimes. I don't know. And I just want to bring awareness to this because I don't think men totally get it. Men get out of their cars. And again, guys that are listening, I'm not saying this in a bad way or putting you down. You just don't understand. I want you to hear this stuff and know this stuff so you know what goes through our brain. And then you know what blind spots are there and you know how to help and protect the people that you love. That's why I'm sharing this. But, you guys can get in your car, get out, walk into the grocery store, get your shit, go back into your car. And nothing happened. You didn't skip a beat. When I get out of my car, I have to have shit ready. And I'm constantly looking around. I'm not on my phone. I'm surveying the parking lot. And then when I'm in the store, I am, paying attention to who's around me. I have been followed in a grocery store before. I had all three kids. I was shopping at a new grocery store. We had just moved to California. It was dark, but it wasn't late. And I think it was dark because it was closer to daylight savings time. And I'll never forget it. I was alone. I had three kids hanging off of the cart. And I was walking the aisles of the grocery store and I noticed this guy kind of following me. And I've always been aware of my surroundings. My family is all in law enforcement. I've been involved in martial arts. I have really good awareness and it's just gotten even better over the last 5 years, 10 years. But I went down an aisle and this guy went down the aisle, whatever, guy, aisle. Then I went down another aisle and he went down the same one. I'm like, well, sometimes you shop in the same patterns. And then I went backwards because I forgot something and he went backwards. I'm like, this bitch, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, okay, nothing. And then I would go down another and another and it kept happening. And then he started getting closer. I'm like, oh my fucking God, I'm going to get kidnapped and all of my children are going to get kidnapped. And the hairs on the back of my head just went up and they weren't aware. My oldest daughter was probably maybe 8 or so. So still young, but old enough where I could say something to her. And I went to check out and he checked out next to us. And I'm like, that's it. And now I'm kind of sweating. I'm kind of panicking and we're getting ready to go out. And those movie rental things that they have by the door? I don't know, what do you do? Rent a DVD? Or I don't even know what you rent. I don't even know if they have those anymore, but they had that then. And I stopped in front of that because I checked out first and then he was checking out and he thought I was just going to go out the fucking door. And guess who didn't? Me. And I stopped at that rental thing, and the kids are like, what are you doing? Mom, what are you doing? Are you getting something? We don't ever get that. And I was just wanting to be like, shut up, shut up. And I looked at my oldest and I was like, I whispered in her ear, I'm like, that man is following us and I can't go out right now. Stop. Like, and I didn't want her to panic, but I'm like, I need you to know to help me keep your sisters quiet. So he went past us. We didn't. We stopped. And he went in between the doors. You know how there's like the doors that go into the store, but then there's the doors where like they keep the cart and stuff. And so you can be the between. And he stopped and it was like he didn't know what to do. And then he was like forward. And then he like came back in the store. And I'm like, oh no, fuck this. I'm out. And I went up to the manager, who was totally like not someone who I would want to protect me, out of shape. And I'm like, look, I'm pretty sure I'm being followed right now. In his eyes, you would have thought I grew like a dick on my head. I don't know. He just looked at me like he'd never been told that before in his life. And I'm like, I need you to follow me out to the parking lot. And then he looked at me like, I don't think so. But he didn't say that. And I looked and I'm like, I need you to follow me out. Like I need to go out there. I said, but I'm going to go out the door and I'm going to run. Like, you better believe that I'm going to run. And he's like, do you know where he is? And I'm like, he was down there, but now he's out. I think he went out into the parking lot. And I think he called the cops, but I'm like, I'm not even staying around here to do this, and ended up going out. And I was thinking in my head, I'm not having this guy come out for protection. I was having the guy come out so they knew that there was someone else with me. I'm like, what are the odds of them still doing something if I have a male and a worker of the store with me, right? I wasn't like, oh, protect me. No, I could have probably beat the shit out of that guy. And so we went out and I'm like, I'm running, dude. So keep up. And we went out. He followed me out. I threw those kids in that van so fast and I just threw everything in the back. No one was strapped in. I left the car. I started it and I went. And I'm like, bye, thanks, bye, thanks. And I was out. And then I just started crying. I started crying in the car and I'm like, I can't go home. What if they're following me? So we drove around for a while, places that didn't make sense, turns that didn't make sense. And no one was following us. And I went home. My life was kind of changed that day in a little bit. I don't think you ever go back to who you were when you've been followed and then you know it. And I didn't know who was in the parking lot with him. If this was a sting operation, if he had other people waiting, like, was he after me? Was he after my kids? Was he after all of us? Like, I didn't know anything. And I just remember crying and I was so scared. Things changed that day. I definitely started carrying a knife on me. I was even more aware of my surroundings and I just started teaching the girls about it. And it was after that we started taking Taekwondo. And not, again, for like protection skills, but I wanted my girls to know what it felt like to be in stressful situations. I wanted them to know what it felt like to get pushed and to get kicked and to be challenged mentally and to not freak out. And then after that, we moved to jiu-jitsu, and you guys heard me talk about that and stuff before, but this episode just hit so close to home because I have been in many situations like this. And again, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. It can happen to someone that you love. And depending on where you live, too, statistics are even higher. Let me introduce our guest. It's Patrick Odle, and he is the founder and head instructor of MCC Defense, where he leads a modern, reality-based approach to civilian and professional self-protection training. Now, with a lifelong background in competitive wrestling and advanced combatives, Patrick has developed a practical system focused on adaptability, situational awareness, and decisive response under pressure. Love it. I love all of this. His experience has led him to train military personnel, law enforcement professionals, and civilians seeking a higher level of preparedness. He has also served for 8 years as an armed VIP protection agent, providing close protection services in high-risk environments. In addition, he partners with Fight Back Nation to help equip families, educators, and communities with practical strategies for personal safety and violence prevention. Beyond the training floor, Patrick conducts undercover operations in Central and South America, infiltrating criminal organizations and countering child human trafficking efforts. He serves as the director of operations for Africa with Children's International Rescue Foundation, where he supports intelligence gathering, field coordination, and rescue initiatives focused on protecting vulnerable children. His operational work reflects a deeply personal mission to use his skill set, discipline, and strategic mindset in defense of those who cannot defend themselves. Again, this episode is one of those episodes that could save your life or someone that you love. I know that this topic, it's not sexy. It's not fun. No one wants to talk about sex trafficking and kidnapping and child sex trafficking and, having to be aware of every little thing. And no, this isn't fun. But you guys, these topics, they're not talked about enough. We don't have enough awareness around it, and it's happening around us. Yes, it can vary from state to state and where you live, but regardless, it's happening. We talk about this in the show. Just down the road from me, 2 cities over, 1 city over, Hemet, they just found 37 kids, part of a huge trafficking ring in a house in Hemet, California. That's right next to me, you guys. It's happening. And I said this before in the episode, because there's different topics that we talk about. It's not just about sex trafficking and all that stuff. There are a variety of things. But if it can happen to me in a certain area, there was a specific situation that Patrick was talking about, and it literally happened to me. And I was like, holy shit, this information would have been so good to know back then. So we're going to take this information, we're going to put it in the back of the brain. Hopefully you never need it. But we're getting it out there because this does impact your health. This does impact your fitness. If you guys aren't taking care of yourself, I want this to be another level of your why, right? I always talk about your why. And why are you working out? What's behind your why? What motivates you? This needs to be one of them, 1,000%. You guys want to have a body that can get knocked on the ground and get back up, that can run, that can take off, that can defend yourself and your children if you need to, man or woman. Men, you want to be able to defend and protect your family. Women, man isn't always going to be there. You want to be able to protect and defend yourself and your children. And we have to know these things of like being on a beach. Are you aware of who's around you? Who's watching you? Are you being targeted? Are you doing things that are really stupid that makes you a bigger target? And I'm going to tell you firsthand, being physically fit saved my life a couple times. So you want to be strong. You want to be capable. You want to be able to protect and defend. And hopefully you never have to use it. But my God, if you are overweight and you can't do shit, what the hell are you going to do if something happens one day? Lay down and die and be a victim? Let someone take your kids? Again, I get really passionate about this topic. And this is why I do what I do. This is a huge part of my why and why I stay fit and why I help others learn how to be strong, not skinny. Be strong, have muscles, train. It's not just about the look. There's so many other reasons, especially nowadays. No one is coming to save us. We have to be awake and aware and protect ourselves. And then for the love of God, take care of our bodies physically so we are physically strong and capable. If you're still struggling with that and you don't know who to talk to, what should you do? If this speaks to you, go to the show notes. You're going to find all the information there to be able to connect with Patrick. And then if you're at a loss and this spoke to you, book a call with me. I'll put the link in the show notes to discovery calls. Get on a 20-minute call with me, man or woman. I work with both. Let's get you on a plan. Let's get you eating better. Let's have a conversation around this. Let's help you be the best version of yourself. You don't have to do this alone. And it doesn't matter your age. Everyone can start somewhere. And it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, well, I'm already big into cycling or I already do this. That's great. It's not like weight training. All right, everyone, sit back, grab some headphones, corded, of course, and enjoy the show. And then once you're done, pass it along. That's my biggest ask. All right, enjoy the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Bomb Life podcast. Today we have Patrick Odle on. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Patrick, I'm already sweating. This conversation, I already know, is going to be so good. And I have been looking for a long time for an expert kind of like on this topic of just women's safety, self-defense, situational awareness, child trafficking, like all of it. And I'm just like, I'm going to be patient. I don't want to have like the wrong person on or someone that I get on and then we can't have the conversation. And you came highly recommended.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, your resume speaks for itself. Everyone knows all about you in the intro and stuff, but everything that you have done, I mean, I've just got to ask, do you find yourself viewing the world a little bit differently because you know things that the average person doesn't know?
Yeah, there's not really any unringing the bell at this point. You know, if I was to try to go back to the life I used to live, it's not really possible. I did find that like it definitely changed my life path. And
Oh
I
my
have
God.
a little bit of a kind of splintered and rough upbringing. And what I noticed is that I processed all of that really well. And, even getting involved in the child rescue work, I noticed all kinds of like older things coming up and things that like with my patients being around people being intoxicated. I bounced for nearly a decade and we used to put myself in these like uncomfortable positions on a weekend basis and
Mm-hmm.
just have the patience for that stuff anymore. So I really had to like be mindful of my own energy and how that changed as I got into this work. And I realized I only have so much tolerance and patience at the end of the day to kind of put out there. And I was wasting it on people that were just paying me by the hour when I could be doing real things with it. So
Right.
yeah, it was a little interesting for me. I do a lot of speaking locally in my community with churches and women's groups and rehabilitation centers, domestic violence centers, stuff like that, just to really share what I learned to try to keep people from having to figure this stuff out reactively.
Mm-hmm.
So you really can't take the information that you pull in to be skilled in this field and then just act, like it's a weekend job or
Right.
that it applies when you're in the field. And I find myself sharing as much as I can with the people I care about because they have blind spots, kind of like we were just briefly discussing. And they may be amazing parents or they may be amazing youth leaders, but there's just stuff that they're not privy to because they don't go down those darker rabbit holes. So.
Yeah, and people will avoid it too. They avoid, well, they think it's a complete rabbit hole, and it's like it's not. You're just knowing just the basic stuff to stay safe and to keep your kids safe. Like
Yeah.
we're not crazy, right? Like tell me I'm not crazy because there are specific things that I do with my girls, my 3 girls. And when we're out and like, I have very high situational awareness. And I think at the beginning, they kind of thought I was like crazy. And now that they're older and they go out on their own doing things, they're like, wow, mom wasn't that crazy.
Yeah, I mean, even an older statistic, when I got into this work 8 years ago, I was told that roughly 10,000 children per month go missing here in the United States. So that equates out by 50 states down to around 200 kids per state per month going missing. And that might not be every single state, but you figure the border states like Texas or California, where they have multiple international ports where they could be filling up cargo containers. And then you have like a southern border along these states. They might have 3, 4, 500 kids per month going missing, whereas in your Midwestern states might only have 10 to 20. So
Right.
average, you've got roughly 200 kids per state going missing on a monthly basis. And those numbers
God.
acceptable, and nobody really thinks about it happening to them because you think of like cognitive dissonance or like Dunning-Kruger effect. Most people don't really perceive that they're the ones that are vulnerable. Think of it as, I have this thing that isn't really going to happen to me. It's more for the other people that aren't as capable or aren't as prepared. And these predators are honed, no different than a lion on the Serengeti. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're trying to spot certain behaviors, certain family structures that make people vulnerable. So if you're not advising your children and you're not having these difficult conversations, then you're making yourself very vulnerable. And it comes down really to, like you said, that big pink elephant in the room that nobody really wants to talk about because they're icky. It's a conversation and people don't want to inspire that fear in their children, but at the same time, a certain amount of fear leads to respect for dangerous situations and
Yes.
that gives you the potential for avoidance.
Yeah. Oh, I've talked to so many people before that were like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to scare my kids. I don't want them to walk around in the world in fear. And I'm like, I've had conversations it's only been with women, we're all sitting around and we're talking about like good touch versus bad touch with our kids. And I've had conversations with women that have said, oh no, we don't talk about that because we don't want to put that into her head. And I'm like, I talk about good touch, bad touch, what's appropriate, what's not, all the time with my kids when they were younger. And I couldn't believe the fear in some of the women that were like, oh no, we don't want to put any of that in their head. And I'm like, phew, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, this is something that I take upon myself, especially with the community that I teach some children. I used to have a school in California where I actually taught youth defense. And with that, it was something where I would kind of clear it with the parents, like, hey, this is going to be our subject matter today. And they'd be like, no, please. We tell them at home, but they respect you in a different level from a
Yeah.
different avenue. And I would talk to them about things like, oh, it's okay to let touch your body. Like if we go to the doctor and there's ever anything going on and You want me to be present in the room. I remember as a young boy, the first time I had to get a sports physical, it was like, what's happening here, you know? And, to really understand how to have proper boundaries and expectations with their relationships, it's important not just at the child level, but with women as well. A lot of the women that I have helped in the past have come out of abusive relationships, or maybe they weren't even in a relationship and they experienced sexual abuse or assault. So
Yeah.
being able to kind of spot people's intentions and being able to read a person the first time they hear the no word, and how that kind of resonates with them. I mean, it could be something as simple as offering a jacket on a cold day. If you say no and they don't respect that, it's just that could kind of be an indicator of potential future behavior. So,
I know.
there are books that I tend to recommend, and different things that will open up their eyes and validate their concerns so that they don't feel like they're just overreacting, like we were
Right.
talking a second
Right.
ago.
And this is so important because I have teenagers. I have young girls. I have 3 girls, young girls. And at this age, they're so worried about, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look dumb. I don't want to do something dumb or stupid that he doesn't think, if we start going into like relationships and stuff. And they're just so worried about what it looks like. And they don't want to tell him no. Well, he brought me that drink, and I didn't want to say no and look, be the only one. So I think it's really important to just, in this part of the interview, to just remind parents that if your daughter's 14, she still needs to hear these things, even though she's not 4.
Yeah, and to create an independent thinker instead of like a child that just
Yes.
falls victim to tribal thought or like
Yes.
herd mentality. Like when I'm out of the country, I mean, I know how to handle myself, and I won't drink out of something that I didn't open. Like so. I practice what I preach, and what I can say is that. A lot of people really envision like the walking past a dark alley and somebody kind of leaping out and grabbing them. And statistically, it's like 80% of sexual assaults or violent attacks happen from somebody that you know. So that
Jeez.
means like 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 maybe are the random person walking down the street, but you're 4 or 5 times more likely to have somebody that you allowed to be in your personal space to try to take advantage of that. So
Mhm.
really kind of planting these seeds and letting people know, like, especially with women, I tell them, don't let somebody within an arm's reach unless you truly trust their nature.
For real.
With somebody who's ferocious, even in the defense industry, when I teach law enforcement and military, law enforcement wants double arm's length. They're not, that's why they'll say, please stay back, please give me my
Yeah.
space. And
Yeah.
they want 4 to 6 feet of distance between them and a potential aggressor. And, I say arm's length at least, because reaction time, like if it doesn't take like a skilled fighter to like throw a punch and be accurate. And if you're within that arm's reach and your hands are down and they go first, you're not going to get there in time. So like we work out the fight science behind what makes certain techniques effective. And this is why I give the women I teach permission to act out of fear for their safety. And a lot of people think to defend yourself legally and claim self-defense, you have to be attacked first. And that is not the case. You have a right to respond with physical force once you feel fear for your safety or well-being. And when I teach these classes, I used to work for a bunch of police officers that had a tactical school. That's actually how Jen heard of me, is because she
Oh,
was
okay.
asking a police officer she knows who she should train with, and he sent her my way. And they've heard my explanations of the force continuum, like your use of force and how to articulate that. And they were like, wow, that's incredible, because they're used to being on the other side of the clipboard.
Right.
I'm the guy who uses the force, gets confronted by the police, articulates it appropriately, and I've never been arrested for any type of violent offense. I've been detained temporarily until they confirm some stories
Right.
or witnesses, and then I'm let go, and the other person, who may be in pretty bad shape, goes away in a police car. So because I know how to articulate that use of force, I know what's acceptable, I know the parameters of that and how to kind of mediate it. It's given me insight that I can pass on to women, where I've taught
Hmm.
classes for a domestic violence shelter, and these women are like looking at me like, how come I didn't know this when I was talking to the police? I was arrested for being the aggressor. So women come from a position of disparity of force, which means that your attacker is most likely bigger, stronger, more aggressive. And it's the same type of thing. If I was to fight another man my size, my age, they would see it as kind of an equal battleground. If
Right.
I was to attack a senior citizen, there's obviously this disparity of force. And that leads to like the next legal term, which is proportionality. I'm not expected to respond proportional if my attacker is bigger and stronger and more aggressive. So you against me actually have the ability to go straight to a weapon. They're not expecting you to go fisticuffs with me.
Right.
And really, when you start to understand force multipliers like a knife or an impact weapon or a firearm, this is where I can take somebody that's willing to go to a higher level of viciousness and I can make them capable much faster. If you want to learn to fight a man with your bare hands, that could take a couple of years to get you
Right. To get that skill. And
yeah, whereas I can teach you how to deploy a knife in less than a second within an hour, and then we build off of that within 2-3 months.
right.
You're pretty confident about your ability to protect yourself or your children. So understanding the what we call the pillars of self-defense, and for you guys listening, this is something that you can look up under that terminology. It explains that you have to have first, not the ability to exacerbate. It's not like somebody says fuck you and I'm like, no, fuck you. Like that's not creating a good platform for your self-defense. But if they say fuck you and I'm like, yep, you know what, fuck me, I'll leave. I'm going to try to disengage the environment. That's a second thing. Many states require you to try to leave the environment before you have a legal right to self-defense. I'm in Utah. It's like a little Texas. We
Yeah.
can stand our ground here, same with Arizona, same with Nevada, same with Florida, pretty much the red states, where you still
Yeah.
have constitutional rights. A lot of the other states have tried to, tie your hands and make it to where you literally have to try to leave this bad environment. And if leaving is anywhere an option, they're going to try to invalidate your self-defense claim. But where I'm at, if I want to stand on this piece of earth and I want to claim it as my own, I don't need to physically disengage. So with that being said, I don't exacerbate it. I don't match the energy. I might even try to de-escalate. It looks pretty good on paper when I'm like, hey, look, I don't want any trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I stand the ground, if it's applicable, and then I need to make sure that my response is somewhat proportional. Now it's not an expectation with women. They're not expected to have a proportional response against a male attacker because that disparity of force that we talked about, where you're the weaker of the two combatants or you're
Right.
maybe outmatched. Even a man your body weight is stronger than you.
Yep.
So when you start thinking about these dynamics, it really only leaves one thing left, and that's just knowing when to stop. Like once you're no longer in fear for your safety, you're required to stop applying force. So I teach these pillars of self-defense, and then I teach how to strike first. I teach how to be counteroffensive instead of allowing somebody to attack you. And then you're like working from this deficit where you're literally by definition a step behind this person.
Right.
And that's not a good place to be. I mean, I do teach that at a higher level because you may see it coming further out and you might have to defend before you can impose your strategy. But when I work with women, I teach them to be first, to be accurate, and to be vicious, and it's effective. But a lot of people have gotten this Hollywood idea of what self-defense is, and they think that they need to be assaulted before they have a right to defend themselves. And that is not the case.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's confusing because, women are taught to be proper and nice and, I work with a lot of women. I work with men too, but I work with a lot of women. And I can't believe how many women don't even put themselves in stressful situations. Like I have to really push women to train hard, like work to fatigue, ladies. Like, come on. Like, yeah, I know that last rep hurt, but like, did it fucking kill you? Could you not do one more? And that's so foreign to them. And they don't understand how important it is to, yes, experience pressure like that and stress. And women get just stuck into this. I go to work, I take care of kids, yes, I'm stressed with life, but like real pressure like that, they're clueless and they've never experienced it. And that's one of the reasons why I put my girls, they started to go to like the dance route and the tutus and the makeup. And I'm like, what the fuck is this world? Now you got my 5-year-old shaking her ass on stage. Like, all right, girls, it's time to get into a gi. And we all stopped and I put them all in Taekwondo. They all have a black belt. 2 of them went on to get a 2nd degree. I did it with them. I got a 2nd degree black belt. And I'm like, I just want you to have experience of like grappling and punching and kicking and being punched and kicked and pushed around and going up against people that, aren't your size. And I'm like, that was so important to me. And then when we're like, okay, we're taking too many hits to the head. And I'm like, let's switch. We went to jujitsu. And I'm like, we need to know what it's like to have a man on top of us. What do you do? How do you get out? How do you not panic? And I couldn't believe how many men were there and very few women. And then when I would tell people what I was doing, they were like, you do what? And I'm like, bitch, what would you do if you got into this situation? Like, you have no experience.
That's the thing is, like, a hammer is a great hammer, but it's a shitty screwdriver, right?
Right?
So having some striking skills, that's great, but it doesn't check all boxes.
Mm-mm.
Able to even just get down on the ground and know that you could get back to your feet so those tools are useful for you. I have people all the time where I'm like, I'll ask them, how are you feeling about your skills? And they're like, well, I have a boxing gym and I'm thinking about going. I'm like, look, you're going to learn amazing footwork, blocking, head
Pray for
movement,
your heart.
but don't get too caught up in this gentleman's agreement of this game or sport, because like I do jujitsu. I told you this morning, I just got back, but I also don't play the pajama game, like in the sense that like I don't care about competition. I don't care about sports. I don't care about this aspect of scoring points because I don't
Right.
live in a world where I've got judges and referees. I do a very aggressive, top pressure, smearing combat wrestling that's opportunistic. And the only thing I'm thinking about from the bottom is getting to top. Because from top, I can deploy my knife, I can deploy my gun, I can disengage entirely if I need to run, and when people say, well, it just sounds like a big commitment and I don't know if I want to make the lifestyle change, I'm like, fine, your ass on a treadmill and be able to run a 7.5 minute mile, because it's really hard to attack somebody that's running in the opposite direction at full speed. I can't stab somebody who's running in the opposite direction. But the sad part is, as a mother, are you in a position to run every time that you're out and about on the city? What if you've got a smaller child with you? What if it's a husband with their wife and they're out at a nice dinner and she's got on some heels? Or, there are some times where you just got to stand your damn ground and be able to negotiate violence. So I try to tell people having a toolbox rather than trying to a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And oftentimes you see it in YouTube videos. A guy will be swinging away and he's making contact and the guy drops levels, shoots in a body lock and slaps him against the concrete. That's the end of the fight. So if you don't know how to negotiate clench distance and takedowns and ground work, it's like it can seem a bit like a false sense of security. And
Yes.
I think that that's almost as dangerous, if not more, than knowing you don't know shit. And really, when you think about that as a dynamic, like I've done all of these things to the point where I know where the sport stops and I know where the street defense starts, and I'm able to kind of cut away the fat, so to speak. And I only have somebody for 20 hours or 200 hours or whatever their commitment is to their defense plan, then I can focus on a strategy that's more catered to them as an individual. And I feel like, just even you telling me what you've done with your daughters, you've done your best to prepare them for the world, right? But the older they get, it's like more than one aggressor, even if they're good one-on-one.
I know.
These people work in packs, they work in pairs. We have a terminology in the defensive tactics world, a layoff person. It's like even when somebody goes to rob somebody at the ATM, there's usually an adjacent driver. That driver is armed, they're willing to get involved if things go south for the actual mugger. And so being prepared for the worst and then only having to click your dial a couple clicks is much better than like you only having a couple clicks on your dial, but you need to flip a switch,
Yeah.
I try to tell people, let's get you lethal first. You're a switch.
Oh, I love that.
And we'll turn you into a dial. Once you feel confident that you can get through your day to day and you know you can survive, then we can give you some options. But options are more for like the homeless person that's not really threatening your life, but they're just not taking no, or the unstable, or the intoxicated relative at Christmas, or whatever. But like all of that stuff is a courtesy. If somebody makes the mistake of making it me or them, that was their mistake.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to flip that switch, especially with the work I do. I'm usually in third world countries. I'm rubbing up against the worst of the worst kind of people, and I might not get a second chance if I have to get messy. So,
Right. Let's talk about that, of like being on the defensive, kind of having like some skill, some knowledge, being strong enough to even do something, because I have had this conversation with men before. My entire family's in law enforcement. So all my brothers, my dad's retired cop, everyone's SWAT. And if you're not, you're military. So I've had this conversation with my brother, who's my best friend, who's actually coming out to California next week. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm like, I don't think people realize how much time and energy a woman uses worrying about being safe. We're in situations all the time where it's like, I have to worry if I'm going to get from the store to my car safely, and then there's a lot of women who are like, I don't know, I just walk out of the store and go to my car, and they're completely clueless. But for me, I have been followed in a store before. I've had people watch me and I had to go up and ask the store manager, like, can someone walk out with me? Like, I have been up and down 4 aisles now, and the guy was up and down the same 4 aisles. Like, I am not crazy. So I am just very aware all of the time now. And when my daughters want to go to concerts and stuff, and I'm like, great, but we're 4 pretty girls out there. Like, you guys, this is insane. But I exert a lot of energy worrying about my safety all of the time. What are some strategies? Like, maybe not even strategies, but I don't know. Where do you see that women go wrong first? Let's start there. Where are women going wrong? Is it being clueless and just walking from your store to the car?
So I teach a program I call ARC, and it's AARC.
Okay.
And we've talked a little bit about the R, which is response, like a physical response to violence. But before that comes awareness and avoidance. And awareness is like your biggest tool, because the more that you can tune in your awareness to your environment, like you spotting this gentleman, like, well, maybe not even a gentleman, but this guy following you around the grocery store, right? Luckily, my dad was a retired detective, Los Angeles County Sheriff's detective. And
No way.
I was brought up with all kinds of mind games. It's like the minute we'd pull into the parking lot at a diner, we'd come in. He's like, how many out-of-state license plates did you see? What kind of cars were they?
Yes.
We used to play slug bug, but it became this radical version where it's like, today it's Volvos, tomorrow it's Volkswagens, next day it's Buicks. Like, you're looking for brands and makes and models. So by the time I was 17, 18, I could tell by the headlight pattern if I was getting pulled over, because I knew the Capris or the Grand Dams or whatever type of car they were using in whatever city I was moving through in Los Angeles. And I also got to where I could spot makes and models based off of taillight patterns. And then I learned to get even more identifying markers like bumper stickers and, trim patterns and rims and abrasions on the car from a possible like bump and rub accident or a headlight being out. And I train this into all of the young people that I work with. But raising that state of awareness, even walking into the diner, we'd sit down and he'd be like, okay, there's 3 people in here that have hats on. Look me in the eyes and tell me if you can remember who's wearing a hat, what type of hat it is, and who's sitting at the table with them. So now when I go in and I start bouncing as an adult and I've got a young lady who's intoxicated, it's like I'm calling one of my guys over and I'm like, you need to get her over to her people. And they're like, well, who are her people? I'm like, you guys aren't even reading the room. Like, if you were to get into an altercation and try to split 2 people up, you need to know who might jump on your back. Like, so me really perceiving the world through a different set of eyes, I didn't realize what a gift I was being given as a child. And, I always did all this defense stuff and the wrestling and all of that stuff because I enjoyed it. I never thought I was going to get to some high enough reputable level where people were going to desire learning from me. But I always took it serious. And growing up near Los Angeles, it's like you expose yourself to violence just trying to go anywhere, to going down to Chinatown or going down to have a nice restaurant in West Beverly Hills or West Hollywood.
Yeah.
You're run into potential violent situations. And with proper awareness and avoidance techniques, you can negate about 75% of the violent altercations you run into in your life. The other 25% are like what you experienced at the grocery store, a targeted assault where somebody sees you specifically and they decide they're coming for you.
Yeah.
So through this program, I give them several examples of how to build their awareness and then what avoidance looks like. For most men, it has to do with getting in contact with that ego and pride aspect. Yeah, you have a right to exist there. Even here, I have stand your ground. But it sure does look good on paper if I try to leave the environment or I take a couple of extra steps back before I use force. So, really understanding that a fight avoided is still a fight won, and really thinking about how that ego can be put to rest for you as a lady. Like you said, being willing to go up and feel that little bit of maybe nervousness or embarrassment to ask a manager to walk you out. Now, I've had ladies where they say, yeah, I went to the security at my hospital and they said, we don't do that. And I said, then you ask for his name and you ask for his security number and then you ask to speak to his supervisor.
Oh my God.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars. to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
You may not think you do that, but I guarantee it, once you put his ass through the ringer and you hold him accountable and you let them know if something happens that you're going to be including them in your lawsuit, all of a sudden the accountability factor rings in and they will walk you to your damn car. So, and I even tell the ladies, even if you don't have a network, maybe security's inundated, you can't find somebody at the security area, know who comes on shift with you. Park in the same part of the parking structure so that you guys all don't have to splinter out once you go into that concrete little trap that people tend to wait for people in. There are different things you can do with communication that allow for you to force multiply, have more of a pack mentality when it comes to going out into the world and realizing like you have certain people that you come on shift with, certain people that you come off shift with, and really kind of vetting who you feel comfortable around and who shares the same concerns as you. Now, a big one that we run into today is we have these digital distractions. People will texting the person that they're on their way home and, or they might be wearing a footwear that makes them feel beautiful and makes them feel confident while they're during their shift, but slip a pair of sneakers in your bag and switch your shoes before you might have to run
That's
that
a good one.
mile, just doing everything that you can with your awareness of your situation and then your avoidance factors so that if you have to just take off running and circle back to your car later. I've had situations where I walk up and I got 3 people lingering around my car and I'm like, do I have 15 minutes to kill? This might be random. This might not be random. But for me to just, step back about 20 feet, make a phone call, watch and observe and see they're just talking and they get in their car and they drive away. Rather than me come up and be like, excuse me, guys, can you guys back up away from my vehicle? Then it creates a conflict. Like, I'm very capable. Doesn't mean that I go diving headfirst into potentially violent situations. So, the response that I was talking about is the physical, like how I deal with this threat in the moment. Really, if you're not enhancing their awareness and their avoidance features, you can also, like I said, be creating that false sense of security. And when I tell them I do these things and I'm dangerous. So I want them to know that my ego isn't attached to my altercations. My pride isn't attached to the outcomes. To me, if they just get in their car and fuck off in their general direction, then I feel more than happy to just oblige in doing the same thing. I don't need to exert my position or my force or my will over somebody to feel whole at the end of the day. And this is a bigger problem with men. Women tend to approach me and they know they don't know much coming in or they wouldn't be there. Men come in and they're like, well, I've done this and I've done that. And I'm like, okay, so do I need to show you how that shit doesn't matter before we can move forward? I teach police. There's a lot of humbling that goes on before we can usually make progress. And
I bet.
funny because I'm sure some of my officers will end up listening to this and, they get to exert that authority. That authority goes a long way, but they don't even get the best training that's out there. I can tell you experience. So, and then post-event communication. This is something I deal with a lot in the domestic violence realm and the women's shelters, is that they don't know how to accurately talk to law enforcement post-event after there's been a violent altercation without self-incrimination. So knowing your legal rights, knowing how to articulate them in legalese so that this officer isn't having to interpret your statement and work it into legalese into his report. If you speak their language, then they don't have to change a word that you're saying. And if that person can walk away and a second officer comes up to ask you the same questions and it is verbatim, the same response, this is where things start to get a little shifty, is when you have multiple reports with slightly different stories and you can invalidate yourself as a witness or as even a victim. So understanding this dynamic, my ARC program, awareness, avoidance, response, and education, it really is, I think, a complete package that sets people up. And then I tell people, go home, sit down with your spouse. He's going to be devil's advocate. He's going to play officer who arrives on site. This guy's bleeding from a hole you just put in him. whether it's by gun or knife or whatever, and you guys walk through the dialogue. Ask ChatGPT to print you out some type of conversation of an officer who arrives on site and he's looking into, what the altercation was, who started it, this, that, and really familiarize yourself with this, because you don't want to be figuring it out in the moment while you're half panic attacked, you're covered with blood and you feel like you're being assessed as a potential aggressor. So
this is crazy. And this is really good information. I am sure we have people listening right now going, oh my God, okay, this is great to know. This would never happen to me. Or, this is so far-fetched. Hey, Bomb Life fam, I have a question for you. Are you the kind of person who crushes it at work, shows up for your family, checks off every to-do list, but when it comes to your fitness, your energy, and your confidence, it feels like something's missing? You might be doing the workouts, listening to all the right podcasts. I mean, you are listening to this one. But deep down, you're just kind of going through the motions and you're done playing small in this area of life. That's exactly why I created Fit Mind Coaching, my private one-on-one program for high-achieving women and men who are ready to level up. This isn't just another fitness plan. This is about building the body and the mindset to match the life you're working so damn hard for. Because success in business means nothing if you're hiding in hoodies, avoiding mirrors, or dragging through your day with zero energy, or showing up on Zoom meetings feeling good from the chest up, but praying no one ever sees what's going on below the screen. We're talking about fat loss, muscle building, and real confidence that bleeds into every area of your life, your boardroom, your bedroom, and your parenting. You want it all? Good. You should have it all. Let's go. Click the link in the show notes and book your free call with me today. Let's build the strongest, most confident version of you inside and out. You're ready for more, and I'm ready to show you how. Back to the show. I haven't fully shared my story publicly yet, but I will when we end recording. Jen and I are actually working on an episode that I'll talk about my experience, but I can tell you firsthand, this happened to me. I've shared a little bit about my attack and stuff with my audience before, but I'm telling you, if you guys are listening right now and you think like, oh, this is so far-fetched and like, would I really need to know how to talk to the cops? Yes. The answer is yes. It happened to me. And I'm someone that never happened to me. And it totally did. I didn't even know that this existed, Patrick. I didn't even know that there was words that could be said to save you as you're standing there fucking traumatized. I was in shock. I was literally in shock, shaking, holding my wrist that I was sure was dislocated or broken, just going I'm okay. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Worst thing to say.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. The magic words are you were in fear for your life. That gives you kind of your carte blanche to respond with whatever force you feel is necessary until you no longer feel in fear for your life. And then legally you're obligated to stop. And I don't want to cut you off on your personal experience.
Oh, no, please cut.
Couple of key points here is knowing what the response protocol is. In California, if it's a domestic, they generally will say, you guys ready to work this out or we're taking both of you. Once physical violence happens between two, they take them both.
Someone's going to jail.
Yeah. Here in Utah, they don't want to inundate the court system. So they'll take the person who's least damaged.
Really?
Yes. So if he grabs her and shoves her up against the wall and she claws his face, guess who's going to jail? If she can't properly articulate why she responded the way she did, and it becomes kind of a mutual domestic situation because nobody understands their legalese and can articulate their force escalation protocol or their use of force curriculum or their continuum, then it basically becomes this officer's judgment where he's going to take one person and he's probably going to take the one that has the least amount of damage because they were able to justify that this other person was most likely the one that was assaulted. So when I came here, first thing I did was start doing ride-alongs in the shittiest neighborhoods that I could find, It's funny when you go to set up for a ride along and they're like, okay, well, there's this district, this. And I'm like, well, which one's the worst? And they're like, what the hell? Yeah, I come from a place where, we pioneered violence on the West Coast. It's show me the worst you got,
Right.
They sent me out to West Valley, Glendale, which is, it's a little hood, but it's nothing. I'd walked right through there at night. So not like Compton, not like Watts, not like South. Anyhow, getting to experience that and really understanding how the law responds to that use of force, that's your first big thing, right? And then also being able to articulate that you reacted out of fear for your safety. You thought that this person was going to cause you great bodily harm or if not death. And really understanding also too that if a law enforcement officer has a use of force that results in near death or death, their own departmental lawyers don't even require them to give a statement in the first 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah, because they're hopped up on adrenaline and emotion, and they're aggravated, and they're
Mm,
probably startled, and they know that that's not a good look for the department. So navigating that with a law enforcement professional, and this is where I'm saying these cops are like, damn, he's got this together. It's like for you to say, look, I'm totally willing to give a statement. Can you just give me a moment? My heart's still pounding out of my chest. I can't even speak without crying right now. And you get a few moments to gather yourself. And also just blatantly asking, like, well, first of all, am I being detained? Like, should I be calling my lawyer right now?
right.
I was the victim here. I was attacked. I was in fear for my life. I was in fear for permanent bodily harm. And this is why I responded with XYZ in your legalese. And this is when I stopped. You even showing like he was bigger than me. He was stronger than me. I tried to back up. He wouldn't let me get away. He came into my space. I filled it. I tried everything I could with non-lethal force before I elicited my response, and then saying like, and then at the point that he turned away and was holding his torso or whatever,
Mhm.
I that I had been effective and I stopped, and then I called you guys, even when they arrive on site, being like, hey, I'm the one that called you.
Good to know.
Like, if they don't call first, who's generally perceived as the victim?
Hmm.
Person who calls or the person who gets called on?
Hmm.
Know? So it's like I tell people all the time, if you have a violent altercation, I don't give a shit if you win. Call 911. Be the voice that puts in the report. Get on record that you were the one that was assaulted. It's like all of this stuff changes the perception of the officer who arrives on site.
Okay.
So these are all factors that I teach and I have people consider so that when they start going through the dialogue with their partner or their whoever's going to help them to develop their tape loop that they're going
Yeah.
to go through when they have to actually use this one day. It's not stuff you want to figure out in the moment, but
No.
that factor of just saying, hey, can I just have a few moments to compose myself and then start going over that tape loop in your head and say, okay, my hands were shaking, my heart was racing, I was in fear for my life. I'm ready to make my report. Maybe you can just, or even like this is a powerful tool. That guy saw everything that happened right there. Like you invoking a witness within your environment that was there to perceive things from start to finish. If you have that, that's a powerful place to start. And that gives you the time that you need to debrief within yourself and collect yourself and compose yourself so that you're not self incriminating. So you see, there's the punching and kicking part, but when you become an expert in defensive tactics, you also have to know how to not go home and end up in an orange jumpsuit. My job is to protect the liability of my clients, not just help them survive, but now they're going away for manslaughter and they're in an orange jumpsuit and their meals are passed through a door.
Right.
My job is to try to get you home safe at the end of this, not just you survive it and now you're a criminal.
Yeah. This is so good. Like, this is a topic like I didn't even think we'd go into or talk about. And I love how it just like naturally comes out. But I'm telling you, this is really important shit to know. Even if it's like you just hear it, you learn about it, and it's like tucked away and you decide not to take a class or do things that you do. It's still good. It's going to be back here. And hopefully, and this is just my hope with all my episodes, is like you hear it, it gets stored. And if you need it, you can pull it out and apply it to life at that moment. You don't know what that's going to do for you. But
Yeah. When I do one of my donated classes, I spend about an hour talking about these things. And then I spend about an hour giving them some quick and dirty, effective tricks that don't really require strength
mhm,
or require, physical attributes to be effective. That's another thing that I tell people is like, if you have trouble getting off the couch, good luck getting off the ground with somebody on top of you. You
seriously.
have to host a body that will perform for you. So a lot of my clients, even though I'm not like certified in your traditional Pilates or yoga or kettlebells or whatever, like I've been training my whole life. I understand functional physical strength. So to take people out and set them up with a basic program, help them make better dietary selections, this is giving them everything that they need to have a vessel
Yeah.
capable of actually performing. So when I do these things, I talk about it and I get them to a point where it's like, okay, now let's get up and let's do some stuff. Let's put hands on each other. And when you think of certain targets like the eyes, the ears, the throat, the genitalia, you don't have to be like me to make it work. You just have to be accurate and you have to be quick. And I tell people I'm a stout dude and I have a very comfortable relationship with pain, right? I'm probably 90% tattooed but if I get an eyelash in my eye, I got to pull the car over. I got to, dig that out of there. And, there's certain things that physiologically our evolution betrays us. And if you can create that reset, that systems check, and that creates an opportunity to disengage if that's your strength. That 7.5 minute mile. If that creates an opportunity for you to deploy your weapon because you have your small child there and you can't disengage, or your child already in the car seat and they're trying to carjack you. There are situations where flight is not an option. So that's where we fight, right? But I tell them avoidance at all costs if you can. Let your ego go. You don't need to be a hero. All of it is stuff. You can get it all back if you're still alive.
Yeah.
So when I teach these, I can spend an hour giving them some follow-ups and some initial contact that's going to be effective. But realistically, I try to tell them, like, if you don't hone this and you don't practice it, I don't want it to become that false sense of security. Like, check the box, I'm good. I took
Right.
class, and so.
What does make someone a target? What have you seen, like, especially for women? What are things that people are looking for? Like, because I'm sure we could all write a story and like, oh, I'm sure it would be this woman that looks like this type and that this is what they're after. And it's probably not even the case. But what is someone looking for that's
With sexual assault, it's generally easily accessible clothing, footwear that's not going to allow for a quick egress. So like heels, sandals, flip-flops, things like that, where somebody's not going to be able to move quickly if they had to chase them down.
they look for that?
Oh, absolutely. They look for skirts, they look for button blouses, they look for easily accessible clothing. It's very hard to hold somebody down, get a pair of jeans off of them and assault them, right? So, if somebody's got a good footwear on, some type of athletic footwear or a good pair of boots or something that is going to allow them to run their ass off, these are all things that a true honed predator is taking into consideration. Why am I going to go after this girl who's wearing jeans and boots and has on, a shirt and a jacket, when I can wait for the next girl to come out and she's going to be in a mini skirt and she's going to be in some flats or some,
Fuck.
I know. And I know how it is.
I just sit back and cross my arms.
Pretty. I look like, you feel under attack, right?
It's bullshit. It's just bullshit that we live in this world now that we have to be careful. We can't go out and look cute. I mean, we can, but like,
Well, here's the deal. There's a balance. Carry a fucking, you know what I mean? Learn how to use it. I've taken a 5-year-old child in a back room. I show them a couple of cut angles, how to thrust, how if they get blocked, how to re-angle with it. And then I take a Sharpie marker and I come back out and I'm like, Dad, I want you to carry this kid out of the door. But every time he pokes you with that marker, you're leaking. So I want you to consider that. And now this kid is like giving himself permission and they're like kind of, little soft up, kind of wanting to, and Dad now is like, well, am I going to negotiate this? Now imagine if it's a 15-year-old and I have 5 hours instead of a 5-year-old and 15 minutes.
right?
So that's why I say, like, being able to hold somebody accountable, make them respect your no. Like, what do you do if you say no and they don't listen and they're bigger than you, they're stronger than you? You put a hole in them.
Mm-hmm.
Put a hole in them. We're a hydraulic system. Once that starts leaking, the rest works itself out. So, I tell women all the time, like, I know the knife intimately, and I have to negotiate the situation differently when somebody has a knife, and the first thing I do when I go to a third world country is I go to a little, like a mercado, like a little market, and I find myself a paring knife or a fruit knife, and I makeshift a sheath, and I know how to rapidly deploy, and I bring cardboard, duct tape, lanyards, stuff like that, so I can make the sheath when I get in the country. And I just go to a market and I pick out the knife, and from country to country, I'll just drop it in the trash when I walk into the airport and have everything I need when I get to the next country to make a new sheath and buy another $3 kitchen knife.
Oh my God. I would have never thought of that.
If I'm working in coordination with like a multi-jurisdictional task force and there's Army intelligence, juvenile justice, prosecutors, attorney general staff, I still can't carry my gun.
Yeah.
We're a foreign country. Doesn't matter what I get here.
Nope.
I have a VIP protection license, concealed carry permit, all the things, whatever. But it doesn't matter. When I'm undercover, I have a knife, like every other thug in that country. But the crazy part is the countries I go to, I have a pocket knife. They have a machete. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult, but I'm okay with my terms. I'm just saying, for me to take a woman and teach her how to use a force multiplier, because I've had women, like, their husbands come home and just grab them by the wrists and they're like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel like I could kick them in the groin. I didn't know what to, and I said, yeah, well, the thing is you let that person within that arm's reach, right? But if it's somebody you didn't trust and you kept them at that arm's reach and they don't respect that, and you know how to pull your knife out in less than a second,
Mm-hmm.
now you can hold somebody accountable, you know?
You said that earlier too about like an arm's length away. And it's crazy now that you're thinking about that. When we're out, people don't respect that. You know, like if we go out to go play pool and I'm with my girlfriends or something, men are like right here. And it's like, flip a hand and push them away. But it's crazy. They come right up into your space. And I just kept thinking about that as when you said it earlier, like no reaction time, none.
And I don't have a problem with filling that because my alarm bells turn on a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
You know, so if I see somebody walking towards me, I'll be like, that's far enough. And they're like, whoa, whoa, what do you mean? And I'm like, that's far enough. My ears work fine. What do you want what do you want? You
Mhm.
know, like gas, and some homeless dude starts walking towards me. I stop him a couple arms length away. And then I already know, like, if he keeps moving towards me, he obviously doesn't have ability to follow instructions. Now it's two red flags.
Mhm.
Oh, when I think about that dynamic, that's my first insulator. Then if they come into my space, I don't mind.
Yes.
Then, hey, that's far enough, you know? That's my second insulator. Now, if I take a step back, that's my third insulator. These are all the things I'm going to say
Okay.
when they show up and this guy's bleeding on the floor, you know? Because I don't want to use lethal force before I've used my words to create a boundary. I've used my hand to create a boundary.
Mhm.
Even though it's not required of me here, but all of these things, maybe I use my fists, my headbutt, my elbow, my knees, and then I see them reaching for their pocket. Now the knife comes out because now I feel fear for my safety, right? So where that kind of metric takes you, the more capable you are, you may get further into those insulating factors before you feel like you need to use that lethal force. But if there was a major disparity of force issue, if I look up and there's three guys,
Yeah.
knife out. We'll negotiate with a knife in my hand. I'm not going to take any chances.
Right.
Only one of you, you know?
Okay. Okay, real question. Now that we've like covered all of this and we have everyone scared to death. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. But I'm got to imagine that there's people listening, men and women that are going like, okay, come on, Patrick. How real is sex trafficking? Like, how much do I really need to be worried about getting sex trafficked? Like, is that really happening?
Yeah, and sex trafficking is really one dimension of it. I've had women that, God bless them, they come up to me and they're like, well, I'm glad I'm overweight, so I don't have to worry about, and I'm like, yeah, but they don't know that when they separate you from your kidneys. They don't know that when they separate you from your retinas. They can sell skin by the square inch on the black market. You got a lot of that. You
You've got a lot of that. Yep.
So I'm just saying, like, sex trafficking is a portion of it.
It's
That's
just
what
part of it.
mostly in Central and South America, and we have heard of organ harvesting, but we tend to infiltrate sexual exploitation with children. I work specifically in the realm of children. Yes, we end up rescuing women from being exploited
Mhm.
that are of age, but if you are just exploiting adults, you might not even come up on my organization's radar. And I say my organization loosely. I'm on the board of directors, but I'm not a founding member. I've been doing this about 3 years,
Mhm.
on record for about 5 years now. But in Africa, it's labor trafficking and it's organ harvesting and sexual exploitation. So they're taking children, putting them underground in lithium mines, so everybody can have those nice electric cars and
Mhm.
burn fossil fuels. So
Yeah.
lithium and cobalt is being harvested by children that are being taken from their village with the promise of a better life. They're lucky if they see daylight once a day, or I'm sorry, once a week, and once a day they're fed a bowl of oatmeal. So they're working them to death. They last about 2 to 3 years in the mines before their fingernails fall out and they die from lithium or cobalt
And this is
poisoning.
happening today.
Yeah, yeah. We trained a task force in Zambia this last year, and there are countries that are just now forming their first official task force where they're starting to fight against this. So they'll give us a couple guys from like, Interpol, a couple people from narcotics, from
Mhm.
terrorism, juvenile justice, and then we will train them in the trade craft that we use to infiltrate these organizations and take them down. How to run decoy phones, how to forensic interview children that have been violated without exacerbating their trauma, how to passively interrogate people while in the field so they don't know that they're rolling over on their whole organization because they think that they're talking to a like-minded individual.
Mhm.
So I can tell you that sex trafficking, yes, that's the one that most people resonate with, and that's where the general fear is.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of times there'll be duplicate organizations where they will sexually exploit them to the point where they break them psychologically, and then they chop them up into pieces and sell them on the black market. So
Good
this,
God.
like I told you, this can get pretty dark pretty fast.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear about that house in Paris, California, or I'm sorry, Hemet, California, like last week that they raided
I just
37 kids?
it onto California media. You know what I mean? Like California, because of their tourism,
Mhm.
they sweep a lot of their stuff under the rug. That doesn't mean that it's not getting broken up, but it doesn't look good on the tourism side of things when you got people that they want to go to Huntington Beach, they want them to go to San Diego, they want them to come to, old San Francisco, see the stars in Hollywood. And you know where Hemet is. I know where Hemet is. It's like
Hemet's my neighboring city.
middle of central to Southern California, and like Southern California, right between San Diego, just out west of Riverside. It's like, you think those people weren't going out to San Diego? They weren't scoping these people out on the beaches, Oceanside, all the way up to Orange County. These children, they don't stand a chance if there's not a network of parents that are protecting them, that are communicating with them, preparing them.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, because you said earlier, like there's blind spots. It takes a village to protect and to know. What are they looking for when it comes to kids? Are they really like, say I'm at the beach with my kids and stuff. Could there be people watching from a distance and like getting ready to take their pick?
Absolutely. And the sad part is like when I was a kid, we watched out because you didn't want your kid to drown, right? And now you have to be watching because you don't know who's watching your kid. And they might have another person watching you, that the moment
Yes.
they create interference or a distraction, they're letting this person know, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to start talking to her. And the moment I do, she's not going to be having her eyes on these children. So, for instance, I have a cousin, from my dad's former marriage, and I stayed in touch with my cousins, and she has two little boys, two little girls. And when I first moved out here 8 years ago, she was asking me the same questions, like, what can I do to really protect my kids? And I was like, never take more than two of them with you to the grocery store. Just to herd two little, hyperactive children is enough of a chore. But when you got all four, there's no way that you're actively watching all four kids and putting shit in that basket, right? It's
I
like,
know.
like
Yes.
herding cats, right? So, you can take your youngest and maybe the next one up, and you can put one in the basket. So you only really have one running around on the floor, or you take your oldest and your youngest, and they know not to leave the basket. And you start invoking as a team and to deviating some responsibility a little bit. And I did say it takes the whole village. It's like, I remember when people would intentionally try to have their second child close to their first child because they wanted them to grow up together and look out for each other, and be able to, if you have a boy that's within an age or a year of age or two of the girl, it doesn't matter, younger or older, he's going to probably look out for his sister. And with fathers, they tend to handle that observation a little differently.
Oh, tell me more.
I've seen dads where it's like, I see a dad with like a stroller and a toddler. I'm like, holy crap, like I hope that he's used to doing this, because men do not multitask as well as women. It's from our evolution. And women tend to be better communicators because men were generally the hunters. So when you really look into the anthropology of human development, men are better with silent communication, grunts, nods, hand gestures. Women tend to be more vocal and more expressive and more descriptive, but they are also better multitaskers. So, realistically, it's great that dad wants to spend time with his kids, that he wants to take them to the store. He wants to take a little load off of mom and let her have some time. But at the same time, just making sure that he's properly equipped to deal with these children, especially if you have like an infant and a toddler. The infant may require 100% of your attention. And if you don't have a toddler that's really good at listening, or that can stay composed enough to not just bolt off down the aisle on you, it's incredible. And there are things like there was a hustle going around for a while where somebody would see a small child and they would prick them with like a tack or something.
I saw a TikTok on that. Yeah.
And then when the mother runs over to see why the one child's crying, they can lift a bassinet right out of a shopping cart, or they take an infant right out of a shopping cart and walk away. And it's just watching the right hand while I'm stealing with the left. It's different than how a pickpocket operates, right? But on a more grandeur scale. So there are constant hustles that are being utilized and they're being invoked. And if you don't really have your head on straight, it's like I tell people, go into a community share. If you have a neighbor that has a couple of kids, you say, look, I will watch your kids, you go grocery shop. Then Next Tuesday, when I need to go and do my thing, I'm going to drop my two off to you. And then I'm going to go. And you, like I said, it takes this whole village to really protect your children. How necessary is it that you do your shopping with your children? If you can do it while they're in their daycare, or if you can do it
Yes.
in school, or, you're just managing exposure. This is something I meant to talk about earlier, but I kind of lost track because we're covering multiple points of
We're all over.
yeah, is that knowing your vulnerability. So when I teach VIP protection, I teach something that's called red teaming. And red teaming is you assessing your situation from the predator standpoint and thinking about where your vulnerabilities are and
Mm.
so from what we've already talked about that women are most vulnerable going to and from their vehicle. They're most vulnerable when caught in their patterns, the patterns that they can't really break. If you were to think of any point that you could add randomness into your schedule, the way you drive home from the store, the way you drive to the store, this will help you to identify if you're being followed. This is called counter surveillance. I want to make sure that I'm not being followed. And if I make 3 right turns and this car's still behind me, they're most likely following me. Like the possibility of that happening every time I make a right turn, the percentage of my confidence starts to drop and drop and drop. And I now can confirm that this person is very indeed following me. I'm being targeted, like we talked about. So knowing that like you can't change the path from your work to your car. So maybe you can park in different places if you're not doing the group mentality that I was talking about, where you and the people that leave on your shift together. So being able to assess your situation from an honest point of view instead of being like, well, I'm a bad bitch and I can handle anything. I see this shit all the time. I'm like, really? Because no, you can't.
No.
If a guy even at half my skill level tried to impose his will on you, you're screwed and you need to like shake things up a bit.
You know what? I have to add this in. What drives me crazy is women having long nails and getting their nails done.
Oh yeah.
I
They are to rip off. It's like,
I'm like, how do you grab a dumbbell? But how would you punch someone? How do you do it? Like my nails are short all the time. That's from jujitsu and gis and grabbing and
yeah, but you could still express yourself and have a pretty color and
yeah, they're purple.
but you know what I mean though, but they're functional.
But please tell me that makes you like a target, right? Like
Yeah, well, it's once again, it's one of those things that, limits your ability to fight people back.
yes, I think so too.
And really, your hair, having your hair down, having your hair in a ponytail versus a bun.
Yep.
All of these things are a big factor. And so if you think like maybe I have an office job and I have to deliver some papers or mail or take dictations or whatever it is I'm doing, I get that you might want to have like some nice heels. You go to finish your day, putting your hair up in a bun, putting a jacket over your blouse, zipping that up, maybe even switching into some like quick yoga pants instead of the skirt you've been in all day. Taking 5 minutes to like walk into the bathroom, swap out your outfit. You're not on the clock anymore. And now you're back into survival mode the moment that you know you're susceptible. So I think that all of these are important factors that most people just discredit because, once again,
Sure.
and then the cognitive dissonance. It's like it's either not going to happen to me, it's going to be that's for somebody else, or it's I will perform much better than I think I will. Right?
Yeah.
And the two of those together make a bastard child that is just vulnerability.
I agree.
So red teaming, that's a big factor, really assessing assessing your behavior, thinking about it from the idea of a predator, where are you most vulnerable? And that's where you should be turned on and tuned in, right? So that was something I was going to mention earlier with enforcement stuff, but so as far as the human trafficking, it's a very real thing.
Okay. And kids.
Yeah, and it is to the point where they're brazen. I've personally been involved with rescues with children as young as 11 that were being sexually exploited by other women even. So you are not safe just because you think you have some sense of community. The traffickers are using women to recruit. I'm sure you've heard of Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epstein connection.
Yep.
She out these little trailer park girls and showing them $100 bill and getting them to come back and give them a rub down. That dynamic is very real because women by nature tend to trust women more than they trust a strange man. But anything, they're capable of evil too. Actually, some of the most evil people I've met. Anyhow, that's
We can be. We have our ways, that's for sure.
but, but I'm just saying, like, really, the one of the last organizations we took down was a 24-year-old woman, and she was prostituting her 21-year-old little sister, and then she had, I think, 11 minors between the age of 11 and 17. There was also an infant that belonged to one of the minors that was living in the brothel that would have been certainly doomed to experience the same type of upbringing or lifestyle. So no one is safe, no one is sacred. It's up to you to be your own first responder
Mhm.
and capable of doing that, not just think like, I'm going to shine in the moment because, I have this, aptitude to be athletic or ferocious or whatever. And that's why I think that when you teach people in the community to protect themselves, you give them the tools for awareness, avoidance, the physical response, and then post-event communication, then they take it seriously and it's a
Yeah.
more intentional plan rather than just, going
Mhm.
boxing and thinking that that's going to work.
Right, right. I was gonna like one of my ending questions was like, what are 3 things women should start doing today? And I feel like this whole episode was like everything that we can start doing today and being aware. But I was just every time you say like having the ability to get on the ground and get up, I always laugh because every now and then I'll throw in challenges with my group and my clients, like burpee challenges, and they're all like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, listen here, ladies. I don't care if you throw yourself to the ground and jump in the air, or if you just lay down, bring your feet in, and come to standing. You need to get your ass off of the floor and have good skills at that, like every day. Like you need to do this. You need to have that ability. And if you suck at it, that's a problem. And when I turn it like that for women with fitness and stuff, and I'm like, leg press. Yeah, I want you guys doing it. I want you to have the strength of your legs to be able to extend and push, or even bench pressing, like just being able to have that motion of like something. And everyone's always like deer in headlights when I say stuff like that. They're like, well, you're so violent, Melissa. I'm like, no, this.
I really try to keep them wrapped around functional skills, and I try
Mhm.
to explain to them how it would translate to their defensive plan. Because a lot
Yeah.
of times people find me, they know that they need to know something, but they're putting it on me to get them there. And I tell them, like, look, if you want to come out with me and we train defense, I have my rate for defense. I spent 30 years of getting broken bones, black eyes, broken noses, bloody noses, all of that to get that. I charge I'm not cheap, but anyway, what I'm getting
You
at,
shouldn't be.
I go to teach people how to do fitness, it's about half the rate because I want them to feel encouraged. It's probably only going to take us 3 to 5 sessions. And after that, it's off me and it's on you,
Yep.
right? Well, you need to maintain it. But I offer it because I find that so many people have a sedentary lifestyle, but they're expecting to just walk on water in the moment of violence, and their body isn't supportive of that. But giving them that connection and that translation to these physical movements and how that would translate to your defense plan and why we're strengthening these things. That's why I teach functional fitness. If you
Right.
want a female bodybuilder, I'm not your guy. There's people
Yeah, that's a whole other.
like, and that's the thing. I look at myself and I'm not exactly proportional, but all the stuff that matters, it's there.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what really kind of shocks some of these guys that I work with. They're 250, 275, and it doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
It's anything, it gets them in a little more trouble faster, but it's because I know how to use what I have. But it's never too late to start, and you are worth it. And it's like, I would rather have these tools and never need them than to need them and not know.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, Patrick, this was absolutely incredible. I have to have you back on because I know I'm going to get so many emails into the show and people are going to ask questions or they're going to be like, well, can you talk about this or what about that? So we have to have you on for a part 2. I come out to Utah often. I should totally come out and take a class, and Jen and I should hire you and like just do a fun, I don't know. We'll have to see everything that you offer and when. And
Especially with you having somewhat of a background, and it might inspire her because she
yep.
she was as well versed as you are. And and that's the thing, sometimes I'm doing a corporate training, sometimes it's safety talk for college. I train Department of Defense intelligence officers for both Army intelligence and for DoD human and counterintelligence. I train Air Force security forces, law enforcement, correctional officers. And to be able to take my background and cater a curriculum that's specifically for their mission objective,
Mhm.
That's the thing that I do is I put myself in their position. I think about their threats and I give you tools that I would want if I were you. So, I'd love to have that opportunity if you're in this area.
I know that would be cool. I think that'd be really cool to do. I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was great. Are you on social media? Do you have a website? Like where can we send people to find you and follow you, and especially
Yeah.
our Utah audience?
I don't usually give out my Facebook because that's kind of like my connection to my personal stuff.
Okay.
But my Instagram is MCC Defense. That's the American spelling, DEFENSE, all one word together, MCC Defense. And then I can be reached also at mccdefense.com.
Okay.
And I'm building out kind of an online community through
Oh,
school
nice.
where I put up videos of things I find of value. It's only about a month old, but right now I'm filling it up with my students. After I've got about 100 people in there, I'm probably going to put a small fee to be a part of the community.
For sure. Yes.
But I'm just trying to build out something to kind of get away from traditional social media and create a community of like-minded people where I also can start offering some courses online. So
I love it. Well, we're here to support you to build this out. This was great. And again, too, when you do that, like come back on and we'll promote it even more on here too. But Patrick, this was amazing. I can't thank you enough for coming on. And if you're down, we'd love to have you on for a part 2 as well.
that would be great. And if I can, some people they're not made out for field work, and have these difficult conversations in your community. And if somebody in their heart finds the want to support what we do, I work with the Children's International Rescue Foundation. And if you want to know more about the work that we're doing around the world, it's thecirf.org.
Okay.
That's my passion. I teach about 15, 20 hours a week, private lessons, and, with my agencies that I work with. But other than that, the rest of my time goes to trying to build up the rescue and to get out in the field and do those hard things.
Oh, perfect. Well, if you think of anything else that you want us to put into the show notes and organizations to check out and websites, just let us know and we'll put it in there, because we always send everyone to the show notes for like links and follows and everything. So they will go there. But again, thank you. Because these aren't fun, sexy topics all the time, but they are so necessary. So thank you for coming on and just being so brave and like talking about all of this, because there are people that won't come on and share like this. And being in the podcasting world, it always intrigues me of like, we have to have these hard conversations. People aren't going to learn. People aren't going to be aware. And just this episode today could have saved someone's life.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If just this hour potentially has that life-altering difference for somebody, then it's worth the time. So.
Yeah, for real. Everyone go to the show notes, learn more, support, gather all the information you can. And especially if you're in the Utah area, reach out for sure. But thanks again, Patrick, for coming on. And everyone stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time. The Bomb Life podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The content shared here is not intended as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any health, fitness, financial, or legal decisions. The opinions shared on this podcast are personal experiences and insights. So if you need expert guidance, go find the right professional for you. Thanks for listening.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial. If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.